evening air was dense with silence, not the peaceful kind, but the heavy, padded quiet that settles over a home just before something breaks. Vlad sat at his desk, fingers idly tracing the rim of his ceramic coffee mug, the one Marina had given him years ago. To my favorite listener, ironic now, he glanced at the blinking notification on his phone. A new voice message from her. Marina. She always left voice messages, even for the smallest things. A grocery list, a passing thought, a mood she couldn't quite put into words. Her voice filled spaces text never could. He pressed play. A breath. Then a whisper, low, charged, intimate. He'll be asleep in 15 minutes. I'll slip out like last time. Quiet, I want you. God, I want you. The message ended just like that. The room, once neutral, seemed to tilt. Vlad stared at the screen. One heartbeat passed, then another. His face remained blank, not frozen, controlled. He reached for his headphones, the over-ear monitors he only used when he wanted to hear everything, slid them on, clicked play again. This time, he didn't listen to the words. He listened past them, to the silence between syllables, to the faint creak of her heel on their balcony, to the hum of street noise through the glass door, to the faint, unmistakable clink of the ceramic ashtray, where she always flicked her cigarettes. He leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes, and exhaled slowly through his nose. No confrontation, no drama. He had something better. Opening the audio editor, he imported the file, zoomed in. Waveforms like jagged mountains rose before him, peaks of betrayal, valleys of breath. He detached the vocal stem, applied a spectral denoiser, ran a high-pass filter, stripped the frequency mud. He could isolate her whisper down to every micro-expression, every flicker of breath before the lie. His eyes moved without hesitation. This was his world, his realm of precision, where emotion meant nothing, but evidence meant everything. Teletypes 2143. Location, home, his home. Voice, hers. Unmistakably, he saved the file, labeled it plainly, Marina_confession_1. Then he opened a folder, created a new one, named it The Archive. He clicked record on a blank audio track, spoke into the microphone for the first time in weeks. Session begins. Subject, Marina. First entry, the whisper. His voice was level, no rage, no sorrow, only the calm of a man who knew one truth. Sound never lies. And he had spent his life learning how to hear everything others tried to hide. The next morning, the world behaved as though nothing had happened. Marina moved through the apartment in her usual rhythm, silk robe, quiet humming, half-eaten toast on a chipped ceramic plate. She kissed him on the cheek, warm as ever, a ritual of practiced affection. He returned the gesture with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. She didn't notice. She never noticed. Vlad sat in the kitchen, sipping his coffee. But he wasn't thinking about breakfast. He was thinking about frequencies. Last night, he had stayed up until 3 a.m., analyzing her message in forensic detail. The audio wasn't just a slip, it was a blueprint. A confession with coordinates. Beneath her breathy whispers were layers of truth she didn't know she was leaving behind. He had isolated the background noise, a faint mechanical hum specific in pitch. Hotel HVAC. Not their building, too industrial. He ran the sound through his archive of ambient samples. Thousands of files labeled by type, brand, age, and acoustics. HVAC_envirolux_beta_suite_2000. 19.wave.match. Vlad felt the first piece click into place. He didn't feel triumph, not yet. This wasn't a game he wanted to win, but one he had been dragged into, and if he had to play, he'd play like a professional. That afternoon, while Marina was running errands, he slipped into the bedroom. From the drawer, he removed a tiny lapel mic, a spare lavalier he once used on an indie film set. He knew where to place it, behind the headboard, aligned with the bed frame, calibrated for vocal range. It would catch everything, not just her voice, but the silence between the lies. In the following days, Vlad returned to his usual rhythm, or so it seemed. He edited commercials, mixed podcasts, met clients. Marina came and went, sometimes smiling, sometimes distant, always warm enough to avoid suspicion. But each night, while she scrolled through her phone or took long whispered calls on the balcony, Vlad sat in his soundproof studio, headphones on, eyes fixed on waveforms. And he listened. Every night, her voice trickled in, pieces of her, half-truths, breathy confessions, soft laughter that didn't belong to him. Each message she left, whether for him or not, was downloaded, archived, tagged, dated. Her voice had always been her power. Now it was his weapon. By the end of the week, he had over 40 recordings. He had cut and arranged them into a linear narrative, a kind of documentary, not for others, just for her. She would hear herself, unfiltered, undisguised, unavoidably guilty. One evening, as Marina showered, Vlad retrieved her phone. She never locked it around him. Why would she? He was predictable, trustworthy, boring even. But he wasn't careless. He navigated to her audio files, opened Cloud Sync, and downloaded everything. Her voice messages, saved calls, unsent notes, all of it. He copied them to a folder marked Echoes. When she came out of the bathroom, damp hair clinging to her collarbone, he was back in the living room, legs crossed, skimming a book he wasn't reading. She didn't suspect a thing, but things were shifting. Small changes, subtle signs. She had stopped looking him in the eye as much, he noticed. Her laugh was slower now, filtered, and most telling of all, she had begun deleting her voice messages. Too late. He already had them, backed up, restored, and enhanced. He had filtered out the static of her lies and refined every syllable of truth. She had used her voice to betray. He would use sound to reveal, and when the time came, when the final track played, she wouldn't hear rage. She'd hear the terrifying certainty of a man who didn't scream, didn't beg, didn't even ask why. He just listened. By the second week, silence had become Vlad's most fluent language. He had mastered the art of being present but unseen, like a perfectly balanced echo in a soundproofed room. Marina moved through their shared space, unaware that her every step left a footprint in frequencies he could read like Braille. She still whispered on the balcony when she thought he was asleep. Still called him when she thought Vlad was in the studio. But now, every murmur, sigh, and kiss wasn't just heard. It was captured, cleaned, layered, and dated. Vlad's sound archive had evolved into a weaponized journal, a chronological symphony of betrayal he labeled the project. Bispectgram _anatomy _of _a Liwe. By now, he had more than enough for confrontation. But that wasn't his goal. Truth wasn't enough. She needed to hear it, to feel herself unravel, not by his rage, but by her own voice playing back at her, one choice at a time. But something shifted that week. And it wasn't just Marina. The third voice. Vlad first noticed it on a recording from Tuesday night. Marina had stepped out to walk off a headache, but the mic had picked up a low, unfamiliar laugh layered beneath her own. It didn't match the tone or cadence of the lover she'd whispered to before. This voice was deeper, more guttural. He scrubbed the track, isolated the frequencies, then he paused. Two voices, not one. Was there a second man? Or was this one voice morphing, pretending? The tone suggested practiced intimacy, like a conversation played out many times before, and Vlad knew voices, could hear deceit in breath work, confidence in pacing, arrogance in silence. This man wasn't in love with Marina. He was performing, and not just for her, recording her. That realization hit colder than the betrayal itself. Suddenly, Vlad wasn't just piecing together a story of infidelity. He was tracing a layered lie, one in which his wife might not even be the manipulator. Was she a willing traitor or just a character in someone else's game? He couldn't be sure, so he adjusted his strategy. That night, he upgraded the balcony mic to a directional condenser capsule, discreetly nestled inside a hollowed screw fixture. It could now pick up whispers across the street. He added a second line-in recorder to their shared bedroom, capturing sleep murmurs, breath rhythms, subconscious truths. What he found there chilled him. In one 4 a.m. segment, Marina, mid-dream, mumbled, "No, not here, not in our bed, please don't." She never mentioned it the next day. She never woke up crying, but Vlad heard the shift, heard her breath stumble when she checked her phone the next morning, heard the weight behind her quiet. This wasn't just cheating. This was fear. Suddenly the game warped. No longer just betrayal, something deeper, more parasitic. The next few days, Vlad started leaving traces, not confrontational, just deliberate absences of routine. He stopped refilling the coffee canister she always used, didn't remind her of her dentist appointment, let a voicemail from her mother go unanswered, something he'd never done before. She noticed. He saw her eyes linger longer on his movements. He caught her staring at his headphones one morning, watching how tightly he held them. The cracks began to form. Then came Friday. He'd spliced together a short audio piece, not confrontational, not revealing, just subtle. From his studio speakers, he let it play at low volume while she passed by. Her voice, laughing, whispering, not the message, just a snippet from a week ago. She froze in the hallway. He didn't react, pretended it was a clip from a client. But he saw the color drain slightly from her face, the tilt of her head, as if her body recognized the echo before her mind caught up. That night, she barely spoke. He had touched the wire, she had flinched. Now he knew how to keep pulling. Vlad began crafting the final mix, not just a chronological playback, but a story. A soundscape of trust and decay. Her voice layered over ambient recordings, his commentary folded between moments like a narrator in an audio drama. He wrote lines, quiet ones, spoken in his own voice, calm and surgical. You said I didn't listen, but I always did. Every breath, Marina, every pause. I heard them all. This isn't revenge. This is clarity. Each clip, each message, each lie, precisely placed. He practiced timing, pacing, tonal flow, not a tantrum, a composition, a sonic blade, and for the finale, a 12-second silence. Tio, weighty. At the end of it, his voice barely above a whisper. A year ago, we stopped speaking, but I never stopped hearing you. She would hear it soon, not in a fight, not in a confrontation, but in her own home, alone, pressing play, expecting music, and receiving truth instead. And after that, nothing. No shouting, no goodbye, just an apartment filled with silence and a single flash drive on the table. Vlad wasn't interested in justice. He wanted her to feel what he had lived with for weeks. That every moment she thought she was alone, she was already a recording. Marina noticed it first in the mirror, not in her face, which remained carefully composed, but in the silence behind her reflection. Vlad had stopped humming in the mornings. For 13 years, he always hummed something, barely audible, low, mostly off-key, a habit as natural as his coffee routine. But now, nothing. No soft melody trailing him through the apartment, no rhythmic tapping of fingers on the table, just the silence that listened. She didn't ask him why, she couldn't. The air between them had changed, not hostile, not cold, something worse, neutral. He wasn't asking where she'd been, wasn't looking through her phone, wasn't catching her in lies. He wasn't reacting at all. And that terrified her more than screaming ever could. She began to test him in small ways. One night, she deliberately left her phone unlocked on the table, a message half written to Olga, but really, it was to him. Her real lover, the one who now rarely answered when she called. She left the screen bright, hoping Vlad would see the name, the time, the incomplete message. He walked past it, didn't even glance. The next day, she brought home his favorite pastries, the kind he used to eat right out of the bag. He thanked her with a nod and placed the bag in the fridge without opening it. No smile, no tension, just the polite gesture of a coworker. That night, she woke up to a strange sound, soft, mechanical, repeating. She sat up in bed and realized it was coming from the living room, Vlad's studio. The door was slightly ajar, something he never allowed. She crept toward it barefoot, her heart stammering. Inside, the monitors glowed in the dark. On the screen, waveforms. A session was open. In the audio editor, tracks stacked with color-coded markers. One track pulsed gently. A playback. She couldn't hear the sound, but she recognized the waveform shapes. They looked familiar. Her voice. No, not just her voice. Her whisper. And below it, in cleaner form, his voice. Vlad's calm. Even she didn't enter the room. She couldn't. Instead, she backed away, heart pounding. Every breath now a potential confession. Days passed. She stopped using the balcony. The phone calls slowed. She deleted chats obsessively, began triple-checking her own messages before sending them. But the more she tried to clean up, the more paranoid she became. Because something inside her was whispering now, what if he already knew everything? He had changed. Not outwardly. He still brewed coffee in the morning, still left his socks rolled in threes, but his silences grew longer, and his eyes, those calm, deep eyes, no longer searched her. They watched her. Not with suspicion, with conclusion, like someone who had already finished reading the book. She began dreaming strange things, a voice looping back her own words. Empty rooms echoing with laughter she couldn't place. One night she woke up crying, not from a nightmare, but from a phrase she couldn't forget. You said I'd never listened, but I was always listening. Had she heard it or imagined it? The line followed her into waking hours. She couldn't unhear it, couldn't place where she'd heard it first. She started jumping at small sounds, the fridge motor kicking in, a door creaking, even her own recorded memos. Her voice sounded foreign now, too clear, too exposed. She stopped leaving voice messages altogether. She texted, briefly, flatly, but even then she wondered if he was reading them somehow. Then came the moment she couldn't explain. Late one afternoon, she returned home early. Vlad wasn't there. The apartment was dim, curtains drawn halfway. She turned on the speaker, an old habit, wanting background noise to fill the silence. Instead of music, a voice played, her own. He'll be asleep in 15. I'll dress quietly. I want you. God, I want you. She froze. Her voice was wrapped in sound design, layered with the creak of their balcony door, the clink of the ashtray, the hum of passing traffic. Then, over it, a second voice entered. Vlads, you always said I was quiet, that I faded into the background, but the thing about silence is it records everything. Her knees buckled, she dropped onto the couch. The track continued. A montage now, her sighs, her giggles, her lies, stacked in perfect clarity. Between them, Vlad's calm commentary, never angry, never bitter, just true. And at the end, a long pause, 12 seconds of absolute breathless silence. Then his voice, this is the last thing you'll ever hear from me. The speaker clicked off, the room fell into stillness. On the coffee table, a flash drive, silver, clean, labeled in black ink. Play me, but she didn't touch it. Not yet. She couldn't even cry. Her body was paralyzed, overtaken by the sick, spiraling realization that the game was never about the affair. It was about control, and he had never lost it. Vlad had never needed to shout. He had engineered her collapse with silence. The apartment was darker than usual that night, not from the setting sun, but from something more intimate, as if the light itself had withdrawn, embarrassed to witness what was about to happen. Marina sat on the edge of the couch, staring at the silver flash drive as though it were a loaded weapon. The label was handwritten, sharp, clean, unmistakably Vlad's. Play me. Her palms were damp. She hadn't cried, couldn't. Whatever grief should have come had been replaced with a numb stillness that wrapped her bones like frost. The speaker across the room was still on, waiting. She picked up the flash drive like it might bite, inserted it into the port, waited, no music, no chime, just a soft hum, and then her voice. I'll dress quietly, like last time. The same recording she'd heard earlier, but not cut off this time. It continued. You said you missed my breath on your shoulder. I can still taste you. Can't wait. Then silence. Then Vlad. I know every frequency of your voice, every sigh, every tremor when you lie. His tone was level, almost clinical, but each word hit like a stone dropped into water, the ripples expanding. You left a trail, Marina, not in lipstick or perfume, but in reverb. Background hums, street names half-spoken, room tone, clips methodically arranged, her giggles layered over a filtered hotel room ambiance. A phone call she thought was private, cleaned of static. Her voice sang, love you, but not to Vlad. You built this track, I only edited it. Another pause, longer this time. She shifted in her seat, suddenly cold. Then, a new recording, one she hadn't heard before. Her dream, that night, the 4 a.m. murmur. She hadn't known she spoke aloud. Not here, not in our bed. Her voice, fragile, exposed. She covered her mouth, heart pounding. He'd even recorded that? You weren't just unfaithful, Vlad's voice resumed. You were afraid of him, of yourself, and maybe of silence. She felt the walls tilt, not from shame. Not entirely, but because he was right. She had filled every room with her voice, every pause with chatter, every moment with noise. Terrified of what quiet might reveal. Now it was revealing everything. And then the final message. You said I didn't listen, but I heard everything. I just stopped responding. Now it's your turn to sit in silence. Nothing more. The room returned to stillness, dense, echoing. She stood, moved through the apartment like it wasn't hers. The kitchen, the hallway, the studio door, locked, his equipment gone, cables stripped clean. The only thing left was a pair of headphones hanging like a ghost on a wall hook. His closet, empty. His mug in the sink, dry. His cologne, absent from the air. Vlad hadn't just left. He had erased himself. No note, no confrontation, no last glance. Only his voice remained, sculpted, mixed, archived. Her final audience. She sat on the floor, knees pulled to her chest. A faint vibration buzzed near her hand. Her phone, one new voice message. Sender unknown. Duration, 0:02. She stared at the screen. No preview, no subject, just the button. Play. Her thumb hovered above it, but she didn't press it. She couldn't. She suddenly understood what Vlad had felt, that unbearable, electrifying knowing. That moment when you almost want the truth, but fear it more than any lie. She dropped the phone face down on the carpet and sat in the silence she had once feared most. Now was all she had.